Прес-центр Українського кризового медіа-центру.
Press Center of the UCMC continues our operation today, and our next topic is green mortgage as an innovative financial tool. Today, our guests are Oleksandra Gumeniuk, Director of European-Ukrainian Energy Agency, Stephen Borncamp, Director of Smarter Finance for Families Project. My name is Oleksandra Gumeniuk. I'm Director of European-Ukrainian Energy Agency. Thank you for your attention today. I would like to represent to you the important for Ukraine project, which is innovative, but it is also trendy for the whole Europe. This year we started the implementation of the new innovative financing, Smarter Finance for Families project. EA for several years have been supporting and promoting reforms in Ukraine on EE and RE, and we are very happy to be in consortium of 17 institutions implementing together with 11 countries this project. I would like to greet Mr. Stephen Borncamp, who is Director of Smart Finance for Families Project. Green mortgage as an innovative financial tool. Mr. Stephen Borncamp will tell us today about this innovative financial tool and successful cases in European countries, and what are prospects for Ukraine if Ukraine implement this financial tool, which would promote energy efficiency and reduction of CO2 emissions and will make our world greener.
Much for the invitation, and to all of you watching, I appreciate the chance to explain our program, and I think we have a lot to talk about, but I'm extremely optimistic from what I know, and I'm very pleased to work with the European-Ukrainian Energy Agency along with a number of other projects across Europe to implement this program. So I will go fairly quickly through a lot of details, but just to let you know, we do have information today. We have information in English that will be translated into Ukrainian. We will also supplement it with some additional research over the course of the next few months. So we'll keep you all informed, but the best way is to go to the European-Ukrainian Energy Agency website to look for further developments. But we will, I promise you, all this information you can review. But just to give a quick presentation today, so I wanted to talk a couple of things about the Green Homes and Green Mortgage program specifically, and then our greater plans for Europe. I am based in Bucharest, Romania. I'm originally from California. But have been working on green building issues and specifically some green finance issues in the last few years. And we started a Green Homes, Green Mortgage program to basically facilitate the construction of residential or homes to a much higher energy and green standard. I use this example on the screen here, this small home. This is, if this was an American home and if this is what we could afford with our job, this larger home is the one that we would actually try to buy. And the point here is that Americans typically have less fear of financing and a willingness to borrow that might be higher than other parts of the world. And I use this next slide as maybe a representation of the European attitude towards borrowing, and perhaps to much of the world, where there's really a fear of taking a credit, or there's a possibility not to get a credit. So this is something that I'll talk about today, is the need to have a balance of borrowing too much, perhaps like the American approach, or borrowing too little. And this slide here, this is a construction. This construction is in Romania, but I believe this could really be in many parts of the world. This type of construction is informal. It is done by a home builder who is trying to save money using friends and family, maybe some construction materials that are not optimal. They build, instead of building in a 1 to 2 year process, They build over 7 to 10 years, which exposes the building site to rain, to snow, the many different things that can go wrong with that. They have to build the structure themselves, and Romania is in a seismic zone, but even without a seismic zone, structure can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Next slide. Here they're putting in the electrics, and they can probably have the electrics function at a basic level, but to do it safely, to avoid fire risk and avoid electrocution, obviously takes some expertise. So the point of all of this is we have to borrow responsibly to avoid doing poor construction. And this is an issue for Romania, it's an issue for Ukraine, and really for much of the world. And also in the building industry, there is really only one best time to invest in your home. And this is obviously at the beginning and really early in the process. And just to give one example, many people know that you insulate the walls and the roof of your home and put in good windows to have an energy efficient home. But of course, you can also insulate the slab, the bottom, the foundation of your home. And if you do so, it improves performance greatly. It is relatively low cost. It adds about 1%, 2% to your construction budget. But of course, you can't do this after you finish your home. So you have to do it in the beginning in order to get the results. So this is the result. If we overfinance, that's not good. If we borrow too much money, at the same time, if we underfinance and we miss opportunities like insulating the foundation, this creates long-term problems. So one way, if we can take those long-term benefits and turn them into immediate benefits, then people might be more supportive of this approach. And also, if we could take your monthly investment in those benefits and match them with the monthly investment and match them with the monthly benefits, this will also encourage people to move in this direction. And that's what a mortgage does. So borrowing money from a bank, they give you the money to do the project. And of course, when you buy a home, the mortgage payment is only part of what you pay. In reality, you pay energy cost, you pay health cost. If you have a bad building, it will affect your family's occupants' health. Also, the repair cost. If you don't hydro-insulate and thermal insulate your building properly, this will create water damage and freezing damage that will affect you for many years. So this is all something to consider. This is really the total cost that you pay. And this is important because if we look at green or energy efficient homes versus non-green homes, there's a 32% reduction in people not paying the bank, a mortgage default. So the bank has less risk by 32% if you build green. And also your home has a higher value over time. And this has been calculated at 8%. The numbers vary depending on the country, but I think this is a good representation for this region. This is an example. This is one of the projects in Romania, one of the first we certified. And this project saves so much energy. They have between 2 to 3 mortgage payments worth of energy savings every year. So if we think about that, this home, if you lived in this home, it's like making only 9 to 10 payments to the bank, whereas other people have to pay 12. So obviously this is better for you, but it's also better for the bank because they're sure to get their money back because you have more to give them. And just to summarize very quickly so far, so investing early in the design, the constructions and materials is essential. Responsible mortgage financing will allow you to do sustainable construction. And banks need to look at this from the perspective of the risk that they're reducing by insisting on financing better quality homes. And also the buyers, the citizens, should appreciate the total cost of owning a home, that it's not just the sales price, it's not just their mortgage payment, it's the energy, health, repairs, and other things. And this is a more holistic way to look at it. I'll talk very quickly about green finance. It's a very fashionable term right now across the world, but basically it's looking at financial principles and investments that have an environmental and or social benefit in addition to earning a profit. And I think only important to note here is that this is a group of 30 central bankers around the world, the Network for Greening the Financial Services, greening the financial network system, sorry. They have come together to say that banks need to do a better job including climate risk into their financials. And this is important because this is a very important stakeholder instructing banks of what they should be doing. This is another group. This is the Energy Efficiency Financial Institutions Group. And this is an expert group in Europe. We participate for part of this project and have been for about 5 years. And they're looking at the relationship between financial risk and green construction or energy efficient construction. And so this is something, well, I should say energy efficiency in general. And this is important work going on, and I think this is something to watch. So if all of this is a good idea, then why don't we have more green homes and green mortgages? Usually things happen in a market. If it's a good idea, it's hard to stop it. Well, I use this slide. At the top, we have our citizens. On the left, banks. On the right side, we have residential investors and developers. And in the bottom, an icon indicating all of the solution providers who build homes, whether it's architects, engineers, materials providers, basically everybody else involved in the construction of a home. Well, the problem is everyone is waiting for everyone else to move forward. So you have the banks will not create innovative green financial products if there are no builders building to that standard. And builders, if citizens don't know about this, builders do not want to build this because they don't want to create something that might have a higher investment cost if nobody understands the benefits. And the companies don't invest in training their people and promoting their greenest products if they have no belief they can sell those into other projects. So in short, everybody is waiting for everybody else to start moving. And that's what our project, I think, has been successful so far in getting this process to start moving and to getting people to see the benefits. And we did this by basically putting the citizens first. Obviously, if citizens understand what is a green home and what are the financial benefits it brings, they're going to push the market. The builders will build, the bankers will finance with appropriate products. So that's what we're really focused on. And when I talk about green homes, I'm just going to spend just a couple seconds going through details. This could be a long discussion, but very briefly. Of course, in the top left, we look at energy efficiency. Everyone knows that a refrigerator gets a label indicating it, a hairdryer as well, but also buildings can be and should be indicated in this way. So we look at energy efficiency and the use of green energy, but we also look at the location. Is the project in a place where you need to drive to go to shopping, to go to schools, or can you walk or ride a bicycle? So your environmental impact goes down if you don't need the transportation. So if your site also is near a public transit hub, this is a good thing. Also materials. How are those materials? Are they toxic? Do they affect the health of the building and the people inside? Does the creation of those materials damage the earth? This is another thing we want to look at. Very related to that is if you use healthy materials, you should have healthy indoor air quality. And as I mentioned, health is the #1 reason for bankruptcy. When people can survive losing a job, but often if they lose their health, they can't work, and or they have to take care of somebody in the family who's not healthy. So this is a very important part. Bioclimatic design. Mentioned if you can have the sunny side of your home shaded from the summer sun, whereas you on the winter sun, you allow that sun to come in. If you can design it in this way, you end up with a much easier building to cool and heat, and much cheaper to cool and heat with much less energy sources. Construction waste from the construction industry is one of the largest sources of waste that we put in our landfills in Europe. And this construction can be improved. You can take down an existing building, and you can use those materials in parts of the new construction. Construction sites can be managed responsibly. Also, a building can have places to recycle installed from the design, and homeowners can be educated on how to use their house in the most energy efficient and green manner possible, and other green design principles. So now to connect, we defined a bit what is a green home, but to connect that to the green mortgage. I know this is a little bit hard to see, but again, this graphic is in our toolkit that you're welcome to download. The banks on the left, their benefits are that they reduce their financial risk, and they have an innovative product that supports green goals. To the right, the top right, that is our organization as certifiers working closely with energy auditors. We get improvements in the environment, which is the objective of our nonprofit, and we do so at relatively little cost. It is the builders and the banks that are financing and conducting the work, and we're simply setting and verifying the standards. On the bottom right, the home buyers, they get cheaper, better quality homes, and they're saving the planet, and more importantly, they're protecting the health of their families inside. And lastly, on the bottom left, the project developers, those building these green homes projects, get to have a unique product on the market, and also help sell those units because buyers may not normally understand the benefits, and that's what we help to educate them on. So here's the toolkit that I mentioned. This is in the Romanian language, but this will be translated into Ukrainian, along with, we'll have 12 countries, 12 languages by November 2019, and to continue with the program. So just to connect, so we certify the projects as green homes, and then we inform the bank that these projects should be eligible. We have a partnership with the bank, so we do that for them to make this complex question of green versus non-green. We simplify it for them, and then then the bank issues a financial product called a green mortgage. Here's an example from Raiffeisen Bank Romania, one of our first, or the first partner bank we had. Their standard offer, just to go briefly, is about 5.5% in local currency, but a green mortgage is 4.75%. So 0.75 percentage difference on a 5.5% mortgage. So it's very significant. And to go through how that model works, if you look on the left column with the Energy Performance Certificate B, this is about an 80,000 euro apartment in Bucharest, Romania, which is probably a good average cost for a moderate priced apartment. And the poor quality, low energy efficiency standard is 79,000. We gave ourselves 5,000 euros, over 5,000 euros more to construct it green. And so the loan amount is slightly higher on the green project, lower in the B project. The monthly mortgage payment, however, is slightly lower on the green project because of the discounted financing rate. And what's interesting is we could actually not even have a discount, and the wisdom of avoiding future energy cost is so high, the buyer would still come out ahead buying the green project. But using our program, so they borrow for less money, and then when you add in the cost of energy, then the total cost of ownership, adding the mortgage payment plus energy, it's 518 for a poor apartment, it's 445 euros per year for a nice apartment, a green apartment. So this is basically why we say that it is cheaper. Most people do not pay the sales price of their apartment if they're borrowing money. They pay annual payments every year for 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years. So this is what we think people should look at, is what is their total cost of monthly ownership. This is another of our banking partners, Alpha Bank in Romania, very supportive also with a new construction and renovation loan product for green. And they just completed a nationwide campaign in the country to talk about our certification and their green mortgage product. We have about 25 projects in the country, representing about 6,500 that have been certified or in the process, and it is a national program in a number of Romanian cities. And I'm just go quickly through these projects, but again, they're in the toolkit if you want to learn more details. This was our first project, really fantastic group of villas. This is another project that's been completed for about, I think, 1 or 2 years now, and a successful project with very high green performance. Another project in the center of Bucharest, also very high energy efficiency and a lot of other green criteria. And the Aviația Park, this project was very recently certified in the last month, I believe, 379 units in the 2 phases. So that's a quick overview of our program that we've done so far. I'll talk a little bit now about the European project that we call Smarter Finance for Families. And this is basically us working along with the European-Ukrainian Energy Agency and 15 other expert organizations across Europe to work together to share knowledge, to create or improve these types of programs in each country. Here's a list of the countries themselves that are involved, as far west as Ireland, as far east as Georgia, and is a total of 306 million citizens that live in all of these countries. So our intention is to make a very big impact by changing how finance and green mortgages are offered in each of these countries. So here's a quick look at the consortium. I won't go through each organization, but they're the leading green building experts and energy efficiency experts in the various countries, including two universities as well. And you're welcome to take a look at our website for more details. Good news too, we're not starting from zero. Many of those organizations I showed you have green home certifications or significant progress in different parts of what we're doing. So we're really able to piece together this project using the accomplishments of many of these really excellent organizations. Also, we haven't found anyone who must suffer under this project. We feel this is great for business, great for reducing risk, great for citizens. We have a chance to have more beautiful buildings, more comfortable buildings, more quality buildings, to create innovation in industry really into as a 21st century solution should be. So I think for now what I would say is our focus here in Ukraine is to identify those project developers that are building something different, that are doing something greener, something more energy efficient, something better quality, and to partner with them to help, to guide them, to bring the resources of our project to help them achieve that performance and verify that performance, and very importantly, communicate that performance to the citizens so that people have trust that these benefits will arrive if they pursue a green approach. And we have about 18 months left in this specific project as far as the research funding and preparing all of the tools, but we intend that this will be a self-sustaining project and growing around the world. We already have interest from another 3 countries, both in Europe and North Africa, and I believe personally that this program, for any country that has challenging building codes or things that can be improved in the sustainable construction environment, this program works very well because it's basically the banks stepping in and saying, we don't consider bad buildings and green buildings the same. We're rewarding green buildings and punishing the bad buildings. And so lastly, I would say for those interested, I showed the brochure from the Network for Greening the Financial System. If you're interested in green finance and following things at a more strategic level in the financial system, this is very important to watch because these are the bosses of the world's financial systems insisting that green be given a higher profile. So with that, I'd like to say thank you for joining today and for the time, and look forward to any questions.
Stephen, may I please, from my side, also take an opportunity to ask the question. Maybe we discussed it earlier, but to clarify to our audience, why do you think it could be interesting for banks to make lower their bank interest for green mortgage instrument, and why you think it will be, I don't know, famous among potential borrowers?
So the most important financial reason is that the mortgage risk is reduced. So if you have more certainty that the money is coming back to the bank, then like everything, they can then reduce the cost of borrowing. Anytime you have a high borrowing cost, usually a big part of that is the perceived risk of the investment. So what we're doing is lowering that risk. So in our case, we had a 75% basis point by our first banking partner difference, which was quite significant. It doesn't have to be that high. It just has to be something that makes it worth the effort of certifying the project. I did not mention the cost of the program. The developer or the investor in the project pays the cost for us to certify the building. But what we do, they need to do an energy audit as part of national legislation. So because that is a required cost, it has nothing to do, in effect, with our program. They simply have to do it. And so what we can do, we can focus our resources on the non-energy green criteria. And we calculated it was about 100 euros per unit for the cost of our certification for, let's say, 100, 130 apartment building. It gets a little more expensive if you go to individual buildings, just because, let's say, it's the same amount of work for spread across only one project. But in general, it's a fairly low-cost undertaking by the project investor. The buyers, by getting discounted financing, it can easily pay for that. And coming back to the benefit of the bank is the bank, not only do they reduce their financial risk, but they also have a green product to support their sustainability goals. And also, very importantly, my experience is that the builders, everybody involved, even the solution providers who build these projects, everybody involved in green projects and really focused on energy efficiency, they tend to be the most professional people in a market. They tend to be the most strategic thinking about 10 years, 20 years in the future. These are great clients for banks to have. So I think this is another benefit. And then lastly, on the citizens, as I showed, they don't have to pay a lot and wait for 7 or 10 years for the money to come back. They, in fact, never have to pay because they basically borrowing a little bit more money, but with the reduced interest and the energy savings, from the very first month, they're paying less money. Their total cost of ownership falls, it does not increase. So they're getting a better home, something that's saving the planet, keeping their family healthy immediately. So I think that is probably the biggest winner in the whole project.
Thank you. Можливо, у нашій аудиторії
Дякую. Можливо, у вас є питання. So, if you are interested, you may ask questions. Please raise your hand and ask. Светлана Благодетелева, обозреватель News Outlet. I have a question to you about certification payment. Will it be like in Romania? You will have another cost for this?
Project is structured, each country can set what's appropriate for that country, and they have to focus on, well, I'll say what we do in Romania. What we try to keep it accessible. We did not want to put a big burden on the developer. At the same time, we have to do the project correctly. And when we look at sustainability, people that can look at everything from landscape design to urban planning to energy efficiency, this is not an easy skill set to find. So we tried to find a balance in our cost so that we can deliver a credible, useful certification at the same time without burdening. So our costs do not necessarily have to be adopted by all other partners. And to be direct and honest, probably in Italy, it may cost more to deliver than we do in Romania. And we have in Ireland as well, just with general higher incomes. But I think the key principle is it should be affordable. And we're nonprofit organizations. Our interest is that this is done correctly, not necessarily to create institutions that exist only to collect money. So I think should always be, we're successful so far in supplying a low-cost product. And also to go farther, the banks in our program, they do not pay a fee to us.
Я зрозуміла. Тобто, в принципі, ще цін немає на цей продукт, жодних. Тобто, цін на ваш продукт для України не існує на сьогодні.
Yeah. So currently we don't have any calculations or prices for Ukraine.
Correct, but we will have, I think in 3 months we must to implement the program, and I would say it's probably going to be roughly the same, and also without going into all the details, we should have some support to help deliver those from our partners. So that will subsidize the pilot test. So probably the first developers or investors will not bear the full cost. And so I would suspect it's going to be the same as our cost or less here. So I know that's not a very direct answer, but it is, as far as the project methodology, we're right now determining exactly how each certification will be different, with differences between countries and bioregions and construction approaches, as well as the cost of the professionals needed to deliver. But I am strongly of belief it should be the same or cheaper.
І ще одне питання.
One more question. Tell us, please. You certify some decisions of some construction decisions. Do they differ from Ukrainian standards? Did you study the difference between Ukrainian standards, Ukrainian solutions, and your own criteria? Отже, можна сказати так або ні.
Project and to join, we did a review to see how do we have to manage this project, to do exactly where I believe your question is approaching, which is this going to be appropriate for the Ukrainian environment? So our initial analysis is that there are differences, but there's also a lot of similarities. In addition, we found what we're doing in Romania, as in Ukraine, many of the things we ask for are not asked for in local code. So we're going beyond the local code. And on the toolkit I keep mentioning, there's Annex 2 within list all of the criteria we're looking at. And so, and the reason I say yes, no, and yes, the last yes will be through this process, through the next 18 months, we will be defining exactly, matching criteria by criteria, how things have to change based on the local context. And my opinion, and I think most of us would agree, the best way to do it is to get out and to look at actual projects, to start certifying and test in a real-world environment. So that's a big part of our project. We have the resources now to make sure that a constructor or developer does not suffer because we don't have a specific answer yet for a particular criteria. we are making it available so we can very quickly answer and come up with a local modification if necessary. But the key thing is the level of ambition, and I like, there's a building standard called the Living Building Challenge. And in it, they use the metaphor of a flower as the performance that a building should have, or the impact that a building should have on our planet. And that way, if we have 8 billion, 9 billion people on the planet, and everyone consuming in, let's say, much higher levels, if your building has the impact that a flower has, it should not be a problem. And so that is what we want to have on all of our partners, is a very high ambition. At the same time, recognize that things are different. For example, water savings may not be such an issue in Kiev versus Dubai when we develop building standards. I will also say that through the Green Building Councils, other programs like LEED and BREEAM and DGMB and HQE, different international certifications that we've partnered with for many years, they do a very good job of looking at this, and it's, let's say, not a surprise. So I know it's a long answer, but short story is absolutely the local context is considered. We have some work done already. We're in the process of more work, and most importantly, we're going to test it in real world to make sure that it fits, is the idea.
Дякую. І питання до пані Олександри. Пані Олександре, чи ви плануєте...
Now question to Oleksandra. Do you plan to implement these approaches into normative basis? Will you cooperate with state bodies to implement this concept? Because I believe that in Ukraine we don't have it. This is innovation. And here it is important to understand the issues of regulation. If your project contradicts the norms, the regulations, without changes, nothing will be done.
Ми моніторимо щомісяця.
So we have implementation of agreement between, now we have implementation of the association agreement, and energy efficiency directive is implemented, and other European directives that help implement certification of buildings. And we note that a number of projects on certification and energy audits are being implemented in the sector, so the process is ongoing. It doesn't contradict the norms and local legislation. It stimulates people to support the norms and to bring Ukrainian construction to the level of European Union and to reduce energy consumption. So that's why this project is a big opportunity to promote energy reforms, especially in the sphere of energy efficiency in Ukraine, and to stimulate, to provide incentives to people to reduce consumption and to get additional financial instruments. Today in Ukraine, there are stimulation programs, warm credits at the state level, municipal programs, local programs in different regions initiated by municipal power. Also, there are grants from EBRD, IQ Energy, that is partly compensating energy efficiency measures. Also, Energy Efficiency Fund is being launched in Ukraine, and we hope that 10 pilot projects will be successful, and the trend in Ukraine exists, and we believe that additional initiatives, innovative initiatives, will be working in Ukraine. And thanks to developers and together with the banks, we will be able to get incentives to implement this project in Ukraine. Do you have other questions?
Of course, risks of your project implementation. Steven Borncamp, maybe you know better.
And so I've worked on a number of projects with partners over the years, and this particular one, our team, we designed it, we chose the partners, and we're managing it. So I have no one to blame if any of these risks come up. So let's say we've looked very carefully. I think the biggest risk is there's certain things like, for example, artificially low energy prices. And I don't speak from the citizen's point of view, because if a citizen, if their energy bill triples in winter, it's a serious situation. That said, from a green perspective and a long-term perspective, having artificially low energy prices doesn't benefit the planet, and we don't think it benefits the economy. So we want, through the project, to reduce for example, the energy use, so that the citizens, even if they're paying a higher price per unit or per kilowatt, that they're actually exposed to less energy cost is a big part of it. But I would say as a project risk, if those energy prices stay low, then the financial benefits also get interrupted, they get reduced. That said, even if nothing changes in that area, I still think there's so many other benefits from the project that even if we have this risk realized, we can still be successful. Other things are banks. For those in the green world, we use the term greenwashing. When you talk about your product having a lot of green or ecological benefits, when in reality it doesn't. So a big risk will be if other banks start to come out with green products that are not really green. And for example, maybe they issue a green mortgage to a construction that's not very impressive. And that obviously is against what we're trying to do. We're trying to set a very high ambition. And I should say it's important, at least to me personally, I'm much more interested that everybody does this correctly rather than our project is the only one doing it. The world is too big to try to control all of this. What we're interested in, we want to set a high standard, and that everybody matches those standards, even if they do it themselves without our involvement. So I think a risk of banks coming in and accepting a low standard can really confuse the market, confuse citizens, confuse companies, and it's really a missed opportunity. I mean, if we have 8 or 9 billion people on the planet, doing 10% better is not going to make a difference. So that, I think, is another significant risk. But again, I'm very optimistic if we dig into all of our partnerships in this project. Some of us have, let's say, the same experience, but we also have a lot of different experience and really great experience that we can learn from each other and support each other in doing this. We also have the support of the European Commission through the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency, the support of the United Nations Environment Program, through the Director General Environment of the Commission. We have a lot of friends now that we didn't have before. So I think that will help set the proper standard.
Leonid Khomyakov.
What ROC do you expect, approximately, return on capital? You are investors. You must have in your mind such ideas an acceptable ROC, yes? And then, have you investigated what kind of Ukrainian people are able to use for your products? You see, in fact, I'm interested to hear. Have you assessed the typical future buyer of your product, given that the average disposable income of the average Ukrainian family is about at my assessment, about 100,000 hryvnias a year. So I would like to hear, have you an idea of our average price for this smart house, say, yes, and how it is correlated with this income status of Ukrainian people, and if being more macroeconomics, with marginal propensity to save in Ukrainian people. It is now, I think, about 20% of the total income. Such figures or ideas, if you can. Thank you.
So,
Щоб відповісти, безумовно,
the European-Ukrainian Energy Agency is not only in Ukraine, but for all of Europe, is leading an effort to study proper income levels to define energy poverty. And also, so I would say that, so we're looking at that, we're trying to look into say what, in the different countries, what levels should we set? On top of that, I strongly believe, and I think we all in this business understand that the people who need green homes the most are the ones where incomes are not high. Basically, they're the ones burdened with energy cost, health cost. With growing and high incomes, you can pay for a bad house. That's clear. So definitely, this portion has to be addressed. All that being said, is our program specifically, we're not looking at a particular segment. So for example, if somebody in the luxury market wants to invest in a green home, from my opinion, it's a good thing. They will bring in innovation. Maybe we can try something and we have the budget to do something that we may not have been able to do on a more affordable housing type project. So our program is basically addressing all income levels in all countries. We also look at the principles. We're not going to solve energy poverty or poverty through this project by itself. What we can do is do a very good job in differentiating projects that help the planet and help your finances or projects that hurt the planet and hurt your finances. So that's really where we're focused on. On top of that, if we look at the incomes, I believe as far as future jobs, and green jobs I know is a very fashionable term, but we've seen in Romania, in our program, that people have really improved their incomes based on being involved in these projects. We've had architects that were working in a very competitive environment, and I showed you those crazy constructions on some of them. People there saw architects not as somebody providing value, but only as somebody who's going to stamp your paperwork to get permitted. Now in some of our projects, a few years later, they become the experts that enable green construction, which allows them to charge more money. And some of them are not working locally, they're working all around Europe. They have opportunities because the expertise, this green expertise, is in demand. So I think this is, if we look at it on both sides of it, it creates a green economy that also supports higher incomes. So, but again, I think the key point is we have to, we are mindful of it, but I don't think it's by itself is going to be a barrier. I think building better houses, period, will help anyone, anywhere. And that's what we're focused. As far as what we expect from the investors, we want to support them through this project to do better projects. What I expect of them, and I think is a good starting point, is if they invest in a standard quality project, if they do it correctly, legally, and want to do a good quality project, we can help them with everything else. And because of that, they'll end up with a much better project and I think far better returns. In our project, many of the first the projects in Romania, many of the residential projects were sold in entirety before we could get any green mortgages issued, meaning they were so successful, people wanted these houses. They were tired of bad houses, they believed in the concept, and buyers actually reacted. So I think we would find the same thing here, is if we really create a differentiated product that people understand and appreciate, those developers will be very successful, and they don't have to put any additional money into it. So I hope that answered the question, but definitely we're looking at all these aspects.
Чи є ще запитання?
Are there any questions? No questions. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to our online viewers and to our audience. Thank you.